Have you been triggered by how some people describe textured hair? Maybe you've heard the words excessively curly or even kinky and immediately wanted to defend your textured coils. Or maybe you're a stylist and you do not like the curl typing because you believe it perpetuates texturism. And if you don't know what texturism is, just hold on. That is what today's topic is all about. My name is Dr. Crystal Porter. I'm a hair scientist and owner of Main Insights, a company that conducts research and focuses on the hair needs of people of African descent. This platform is designed to elevate the Black hair care industry and empower consumers and hair professionals with education that is driven and backed by scientific research. So before I go on, I want to know who is here with me today. I see Taria. Hello. Thanks for joining. And when you put your name in the chat or you say hello, make sure you let me know where you're from. And also, I would love to know a little bit more about you. So if you are a hair practitioner, put the number 1. If you are a consumer, put the number 2. And if you are a researcher or a scientist such as myself, then you can put the number 3. And if you are uh, going to say something and you are on Facebook, it would be great if you would allow StreamYard to show your name because sometimes it comes up as Facebook users and I would love to know exactly who you are. Taria is a consumer. Thank you so much. Now, just before I start, want you to know if you are frustrated with the lack of information when it comes to caring for your hair and you have wasted a lot of money, time, and resources trying to figure things out on your own, then you are definitely in the right place. And that is why we have created the Our Black Hair Matters movement. And so I have a resource that I put together, and it is called Finding the Right Stylist. So that's going to come up on the ticker. And so, if you need help finding the right stylist and you want to know how to just have some ammunition to find the right words to kind of vet people on your own, then you can use that resource. And also, if you have a pressing need or concern, I do have a team, and you can schedule a complimentary 15-minute consultation by going to links.maininsights.com/APPT. All right. And so I want to say hello to everyone. I still got a Facebook user, so I can't address you by name, but hello, good day to you as well. We have Julia Porter Maddox. Thank you. You're from Chicago. We have Barbara here. Hey, Barbara, good to see you. Thanks for joining. Really appreciate it. And you are a trichologist from South Carolina. That's awesome. So I know people join at different times. So welcome to the Our Black Hair Lunchtime Chat. I am Dr. Crystal Porter, and today's topic is about texturism and how I believe that it can be confused with hair science. So I'm going to jump right in. I got inspiration for this particular topic from a number of conversations that I've had, but then there has been a post on social media that went up last week, actually, in one of those Black hair care forums. And it kind of broke my heart to see it. And I wanted to share it with everyone. So I'm going to pull that slide up now. And hey, Josie, thank you for joining as well. Get that slide up. Give me a second. Oh, you said you finally caught up today? Good. Good to have you, Josie. Let's see if I can get that slide up for a second. Well, what I'm going to do while I'm trying to get that slide up is I'm going to explain what texturism is. And so I got this definition from 2190. That is a website, and there was an article that went up on October 5th, so that was last week. And it was titled, "Despite the Natural Hair Care Movement, Texturism Still Exists." And so they wanted to define what texturism was. And they said that it's persisted for centuries in the Black community and is a part of many of the Eurocentric beauty standards pushed on Black people. And as described by Forbes, texturism can be thought of as the discrimination faced by those with coarser and more Afro-textured hair. And texturism is based on the premise that hair textures that are closer to white are more acceptable. So, of course, that is something that triggers a lot of people. And that is something that I saw in the post. And if I don't get the post up, I'm just going to have to read to you what happened and transpired. But on this Black forum, there was a white mother of a Black child. And I don't know if the child was mixed or if adopted and was Black and had coarser hair. But the mother did post and said, this might sound like a silly question, but does anyone know if Afro hair changes with the weather? My daughter's hair seems to have gone shorter and thicker, and I'm using the same products. And so someone posted that the short answer is yes, it does. Our hair responds to moisture in the air differently, so products might have to be adjusted to match the weather. And so the author, who was the mom, said, okay, I better get searching for some new products. And then it took me ages to find the right ones. And then she said, I never knew Afro hair was so difficult. So you can imagine how that created a crazy, crazy dialogue of people who were really, really jumping down her throat, which was really unfortunate because here is a mom trying to get some information and it just didn't happen because some people tried to help by saying, yes, it does make a difference and to get products, but she really, in the end, did not get the information that she needs. So I am going to try another way to try to share. Give me a second. Let me see if I can. Yeah, here, let's see. All right. And you can see me. Awesome. So this is the dialogue, and you may be able to see in the dialogue because I am minimized. So hopefully you can see a little bit. But there are some people that said, if you have a mixed daughter, then you should probably educate yourself. Please refrain from calling Afro hair difficult. It's different for sure, but it's not difficult. So different, but not difficult. And then it goes on and on. I'm not going to read everything, but she became defensive, the mom did, and tried to defend herself and like, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to educate myself. I use different products. So I really felt for the mom. And so I thought about it for a while. I did not respond. But one of the things that I was thinking about was, what is the definition of difficult, right? And so she said the hair was difficult. And this, in my opinion, is not anything that is different than what other Black people have described their hair as, especially if it is more coily. And so I have a visual here. And it is a hair truss that has a comb going through it. And at the bottom, you can see how it's pulling, and you can see how the ends have gathered at the end. And then to the right, I have a force diagram, basically. And you can see a comparison of how the hair, the force on the hair as you comb through the truss, how in blue, if it's curly, you have higher forces, meaning that it's more work involved in putting to get the hair through the actual truss. And then in red, you can see barely at the bottom that it doesn't hardly register, at least in comparison to the blue the blue line, because that shows so much higher forces. And so I want to say that her definition of difficult probably was representative of the work that she has to put into the hair to comb it or to manage it. Or difficult could even equate to time. It's going to take more time to actually get through hair that is more curly. And so I thought about it. And so I'm showing this diagram because it is something that is very common for hair scientists to measure when it comes to ease of manageability. If there are different products that need to be tested, sometimes you can actually do a combing experiment to see if those forces come down. And then you can actually have a claim that is easier manageability for a particular type of product. And so when she said that it's difficult, my heart went out to her because I knew what she was talking about, because there is, in my opinion, a big difference between me combing my hair when it's relaxed versus when it is coily. And so I commend the mom for wanting to get more understanding and know what to do for her daughter's hair. And so my next slide here is from Elle magazine. And there was an interview back in 2011, and it was with Andre Walker. And Andre Walker is the one who is the originator of the curl typing. It may have been done before because we use various descriptors, right? So people can consider their hair to be either curly or coily or straight or wavy, or dare I say even kinky. But he was the one who came up with this curl typing. And so he said in an interview in 2011 that it's common sense, but you should know what your hair does best and not try to make it do something that it would naturally do. Okay, that seems pretty cool. And then he says, I always recommend embracing your natural texture. Okay, that seems all fair and good. But then he got in a lot of trouble. Woo. People really went after him after the next actual topic. You know what? I didn't make this full screen. Let me make this full screen now that I'm looking at it. I'm trying to get the presentation to actually be in presentation mode. But I think I may leave it alone because I can't figure out how to, oh, there it is. All right. And so he said, kinky hair can have limited styling options. And then that is the only hair type I suggest altering with professional relaxing. Like, whoo, okay. So he got in a lot of trouble because in his opinion, there's limited styling options, and he feels that that hair should be straight. And I think he meant to have like a caveat, right? So the caveat would be, if you want to wear your hair straightened, trying to combat the humidity and other problems with the hair reverting back to its natural curl pattern, if you want to wear it straight and you have a tightly curl, then that's probably your best option, which is unfortunate because I think that people took it as though if you have coily hair, then you need to get it straightened. And I'm not sure if that's what he meant, but that's definitely what he said. And so someone says, oh, wow, I know they ate her alive in the comments. Oh, yeah, you're talking about the mom. Absolutely. And so when Andre Walker said this, people started saying, okay, when you classify your hair with a particular type of curl, then you are perpetuating, that one hair is better than another type of hair. And so I had a conversation at the Texture Symposium back in April, and Afia Mbilasharka, she was also presenting there, and she is a fantastic, not only does she have a cosmetology license, but she also is a psychologist. And so she was talking about the psychology of texturism, and she mentioned how the hair classification was a form of texturism. And so I guess I kind of got in my feelings because I was like, I'm thinking to myself, and I was like, how is that texturism? And so I want to walk through that a little bit and talk about how Andre Walker started it. And so he didn't have any pictures at first. He just had a schematic of different hair fibers, and he didn't even have the C category for curl types 3 and 4. And so you can see, I'm not going to walk through this, but you can see how it ranges from the straighter hair type, which is type 1, and then going to type 4. And so some people will argue, well, why do you start at 1, meaning number 1 is first, and that would have the perception that it is better because it's number 1, with it being straight. And so I was thinking, I was like, well, what other way is there from a scientific perspective to be able to categorize hair? And so I couldn't really think of anything at the time, but some people said, well, maybe you can start at 0. And I was like, okay, it's a scale. And then I got to thinking, well, it's a scale. And so when you have like hurricanes, for example, and you're talking about the severity, or you're trying to give someone an indication of what it is you're talking about, you can have a hurricane that's category 1 or a hurricane that's category 5, right? But then if you are given a survey and they tell you to rank, so what is your opinion about how your meal was or how your service was? Was it 1 if it was like really bad and needs improvement, or was it ranked a 10? So we use scales all the time to try to quantify what it is that people are talking about. And so I personally feel that it's not, or I don't think we should be as sensitive as some people are. Now, someone who's a Facebook user says, how extensive is his background in African-American hair, in the African-American hair industry? Oh, excellent. I did not let you know that Andre Walker he got his fame from being Oprah Winfrey's stylist. And so that is his background. And then Miriam says, it was meant to simply an identifier to determine appropriate product choices. That is correct. So what he did is he did great marketing because he acknowledged that there are products that are or can be better based on the lubricity, how it helps with manageability. If you have a certain particular curl pattern, then you may want something more heavy that will elongate the curl, which will, in essence, make it more easier to manage, basically. And so there are some people, and I know a lot of them, whose hair doesn't respond to the increased waxes or polymers or different oils that are put in to help with lubricity. And so those straighter curls, those straighter hair fibers actually become weighed down if sometimes they have things that are considered advantageous for the curlier hair type. So thank you, Miriam, for letting me know that, because I did mean to make that point and that distinction. And so the curl typing evolved from Andre Walker. And so then you had, and you can see that this came from Naturally Curly. You can have it depicted with actual pictures so people can kind of see themselves and see their hair type. And so here we have more wavy hair, which is type 2, curly hair, that is type 3, and then the coily hair, which is type 4. Now, when I was at L'Oreal, one of the things that we did recognize this particular curl typing, but it's still subjective, right? I had a supervisor who was from France. He's an awesome guy. And he used to tell me, he wore his hair short, but he used to tell me, oh, I have curly hair. I have curly hair. And I mean, it was a little wave to it. And I'm sure if he grew it out long, it would probably, ring up a little bit. But I was like, that's not curly hair. So it's very subjective, right? We all have our own different opinions. And so what we did at L'Oreal was actually put a little bit more science into it. So it wasn't as subjective because we were able to take some measurements and be able to define it. And so it was considered a worldwide hair classification. There were over 2,400 people studied. This is something that I was very fortunate to be a co-author of. And basically, it was based on measurements, and it did not refer to racial heritage, because you can have someone from any type of racial background and have different degrees of curl. So this is something that was important. Now I want to explain it a little bit, because that is one of my reasons why I want to talk about, is it texturism or is it hair science? Because when you start having measurements and it's repeatable and everybody can have the same reference point in terms of what you're talking about, then it makes it easier from a scientific standpoint to study it. So as the curl classification from L'Oreal, it was a curved diameter that was measured. And so you actually have a particular length of hair that you lay down, and then you put it in you put it in a solution, you let it dry and equilibrate to the air. Then you put a glass plate on top of it, and then you measure the degree of curl in that particular hair fiber. But then there is, it can go into a circle as depicted here. As depicted here is like a circle, or it could curl up a little bit, or it can remain, pretty like a wave. And so you can take different measurements and look at it when you take the end-to-end distance and actually make it 4 centimeters here. This is a centimeter. And then you can also look at the number of twists. So there are different characteristics of the hair fiber that you can measure. And then what you can do is do some fancy data processing and model exactly what is going on. And you basically put all the variables in, you put it into this system, this modeling system. You do what's called a principal component analysis, and you get a hierarchical ascendant classification. And so for those parameters that were measured, there were 8 distinct groupings that came out. And the 8 groupings were affiliated with what you see here on the right, which is a segmentation tree. Let's see if I can get this the way I want it. There we go. All right. And so from that segmentation tree, you can see that the first 4 Roman numerals that are depicted for the curl classification is dictated by the curl diameter. But then when you have a curl diameter that is less than 1.2 centimeters, then you have to consider the ratio. And then after the ratio, if it is less than 5.9, then you consider the number of waves. And then that breaks out curl classes 5 and 6, and then 7 and 8. Now, the great thing about this is that it is repeatable. It's something that anyone from any company or any background can do. So that is what is advantageous. And so what we also found from doing this worldwide classification is that hair from different countries can range in terms of the degree of curl. And so from considering hair that came from Africa, you can see that the curl classification here, where's my cursor? Here it is primarily 7. Here in America, what was collected, it seemed to be a curl class 5. Not to say that this is the curl distribution within the population as a whole, but from the hair that was collected, this is what was shown. In Asia, the hair that was collected was primarily lower in the degree of curl, which is to be expected. Brazilian hair, you can see curl class 3 and 4 were the highest. And then Caucasian hair, that was here in America, or was it? Maybe it wasn't. For this particular study, it wasn't. So for this, it came from different countries in Europe. And then in the Caribbean, we see a curl class 5 that was collected. And so you can see the different types of the distribution in curl. And this is another classification study that was done at the L'Oreal Institute for Ethnic Hair and Skin Research. And this was published by me and my then colleague, Dr. Harold Bryant. And we can see that for the hair that we had collected for our own studies, we can see a large distribution as well. And so I said earlier that there is kinky hair. And one of the things that I like to do, I like to use the word kinky. And the reason why I like it is because when you can take a hair fiber that has a lot of bends and twists and kinks in it, then I think kinky is the perfect descriptor for this hair type. So you can see a magnified image of a hair fiber, and you can see that kink in hair that I'm talking about when I talk about kinky hair. And then we readily can see differences across different ethnic groups, right? And so as the degree of curl increases, we have different ethnic groups represented here. Unfortunately, for curlier hair types, there is an increase in fragility. However, there is a point that we need to understand more, where some curlier hair types perform just like Caucasian hair. Well, I should say African hair. African hair that is curlier sometimes can have the exact same strength as Caucasian hair. And I really do think the kinks need to be considered because they can act as a point of stress. So when you actually comb it, then that area can feel the stress, and then it is more prone to breakage sometimes, or a lot of times in that particular area. But also the ellipticity, there are different degrees of ellipticity when you go from Asian hair to hair of African descent. And why is that not showing up? What this is supposed to show is also intra-ethnic differences, where you can see that this same, let me go back to the other one, it's the same increase in fragility even for hair of people from African descent. So with that, I wanted to, kind of talk about it because I have also read that people who talk about their hair type, they're trying to showcase that they are superior or their hair is superior, or people who have a tighter curl want to actually elongate the curl and not accept their own curl pattern. I'm really curious about how people feel about that. Let me stop the share. I'm really curious about how people feel about that. So Naturally High says, interesting. What ethnicity were the Caribbean and Brazilian people sampled? So what I can tell you from the study that I was personally affiliated with, Caribbean was Jamaican hair, and then Brazilian hair was collected from Rio and Salvador. That's where the hair was collected. So great question. Now, there are some people who also talk about texturism when it comes to how much you pay for your hair or to get it done. And so that, I believe, is a little tricky, right? Because if it does take you longer to do the particular style that you're interested in, I mean, I know a lot of people who get paid by the hour, right? And so it's based on your perspective. Now, is it fair that curlier hair types can take longer? No, I don't think it's fair. But at the same time, looking at it from the lens of a professional, if they're actually taking more time to do it and they have an hourly rate, why not pay the person the amount of time that they are spending on the hair? You said also hi. Yes, thank you. Really appreciate that. Naturally High. Taria says, I have learned over the years to accept my curl pattern. I see styles and try them, and my hair just won't come out looking like the pictures. I've also learned to embrace it. Yes, absolutely. Naturally High says, still wondering about ethnicity, specifically, are there Black, Indian, Caucasian, Chinese, and mixed Jamaicans, etc.? Yeah. So when defining ethnicity, it can be a little tricky, right? excuse me, because one of my colleagues actually is his he's from Asian heritage, but he lives in South Africa. So for all practical purposes, he is South African, even though he has straight hair, as though he came from China, right? Where his parents are from. So you're right, ethnicity can be very tricky. And so that is one of the reasons why we actually put the country. And I say ethnicity just because it is based on the group. I mean, they have different cultures. And that is one of the reasons why in Brazil, even though you have pockets of higher curled hair, you still have to consider, it is a mixed race. So I do understand that. You say you're thoroughly enjoying it. Thank you. Really appreciate it. But I'm curious about what you guys have heard about texturism. I know my daughter has brought it to my attention, different vlogs. She is definitely a YouTube person, and she hears what people's perspectives are. So I'm wondering if she'll even look at this particular episode, since I do have texturism in it. But that is something that I believe is just kind of miscommunication. So I started off by talking about the parent or the mom who wanted some information about her daughter. And I can definitely, I just feel for her, because when you're trying your best to take care of a daughter and you want them to look and feel beautiful, sometimes you just don't know what you can be doing with some of the words that you choose. And so I think when the comments came in for the mom who asked for some just some advice, I think the word difficult is something that was frowned upon. So using a word that can be perceived as negative, I think is the problem. I think that's really the problem that people have. So I want to talk about how to move past texturism and get the hair care you need. And so, as we stated, and thank you, Naturally High, and talking about how there are different things to consider when it comes to the ethnicity. And so I believe knowing your curl pattern is good, but there's so many other factors that need to be considered, right? So you can consider the density of the hair. I mean, sometimes it's just difficult to get through your hair in terms of trying to comb it, just because you have so many fibers in a particular area of the scalp. You have to consider the hair history. I mean, sometimes what we do to the hair in terms of the treatments that it has, that dictates how it's going to behave. Also, your environment. If you are out in the sun or you swim, or sometimes even if you overdo it with the combing or brushing your hair, there are some things that you can induce. So hair quality is important. So it's more than just the degree of curl. And so I believe that stylists that have a problem with the curl classification have a problem with people trying to think that only the degree of curl is what matters when it comes to helping people. And so a lot of professionals know that that's not true. And I agree wholeheartedly. Now, Naturally High says, it's something a lot of naturals deal with, but I think it's something we inflict upon ourselves and each other. Yes, it is not just one ethnic group or segment of the population that is downing another. I think that it does come from different people as well. But having, that conversation with a stylist, someone who's had experience and has been vetted, can really help you out along with what's going on with your hair. But having said that, I do have experience with some hair professionals who outright just have an attitude when you want to wear your own hair. And I have heard repeatedly from people that when they ask their particular stylist to do their hair, their actual hair, and not add any extensions or weaves or wigs, a lot of times the stylist is trying to persuade them to continue to wear hair weaves. And that's unfortunate. I'm not sure if it has to do with their level of comfort in doing natural hair, because it's not all the same. And it could be the time factor as well, but I think that needs to be transparent. But moving past texturism, I think we need to think about the perspective of the other person who is sharing their point of view. I mean, is it an opinion? Are they just stumbling on their words? Because if the mom, I'm talking about the mother who initiated this with her post, if the mom has straighter hair than her daughter, then maybe it is more difficult in her opinion. And so I think instead of jumping down her throat, it may be just advantageous to say it in a way that is a little bit more gentle and tactful. Because what happened is that the mom got defensive, right? Not to say that the mom was wrong or right. I just think that anytime you talk about hair, especially when it comes to something that is from the good, or you're trying to figure out how to do something positive, then you take offense that you're actually trying to do something good and then someone's jumping down your throat. So if we can kind of figure out the perspective and then choose, I would call neutral or positive words to try to explain exactly why it could be offensive. I think that would be a good start. Then saying something about what the mom said, saying something is difficult or excessive, and having these negative words expressed, does get into the psyche. And so be mindful if you are trying to explain what hair is or what you think it is. That's a positive about the hair classification. You don't have to talk about race. You don't have to talk about if it's excessive or difficult or extremely or anything like that. That is something that you can at least have a reference point to explain to someone what it is you're talking about. Now, Miriam says, comparing the outcomes with styling preferences is the biggest challenge. Clients are looking at each other and wanting their hair to turn out like someone else and not accepting what their hair can do. You're absolutely right. And I think that's what Andre Walker was saying at first, is to, kind of embrace what you are dealing with. But it's interesting because, like, for example, a positive I think about curly hair is I'm able to take my hair, and if I want to twist it, there are some people who have to add rollers at the end of their hair to keep their curl. I don't have to do that. So you can kind of see what I'm doing now. I'm twisting, and that sucker stays. It stays. I don't have to worry about it. I have to add a barrette, or I don't have to add a hairpin or anything. My hair is going to stay like this. And I think that's a positive. I have style. I feel I have style versatility, and Miriam is here. So Miriam, she did my hair one time before I went to a conference, and I should have known better. I was going to Orlando, not Orlando. Where were we? It was in Florida. And instead of wearing my hair natural, I actually had it straight. And then I went to Florida and the humidity blew it up. And what's interesting is I was there with a lot of stylists, and they saw my hair blow up and they were like, "You want me to do something with your hair?" And I was like, "Nope." I am perfectly fine because this is what my hair does. And so I don't have a problem with my hair blowing up per se. Now, I may, if it gets in my way, I'll pull it back, but it can stay a puff. I could care less about that. But I'm also game for having it straight. And then if there is a product that's being used and it's supposed to help with humidity, then why not go and test it out? I mean, that was actually what we were doing. We were testing out the product. And so, and you said, and that hair has been trained. Woo! So I don't know about training per se. I think that means different things to different people, because sometimes when people say hair has been trained, it means that they have denatured the hair in such a way with heat that it no longer curls up to their natural curl pattern. Now, I don't know if that's what you mean, Miriam, but that is sometimes what people are trying to do when they train the hair. But you said the process is what people are rushing through and making it more difficult to understand their texture and what it can do. Oh, yeah. You're absolutely right. I believe that it takes patience. And when it comes to hair, people don't have a whole lot of patience. But I know of a practitioner who got a new client, and she was talking about how the hair felt initially. But after she had spent time with the client and the client returned several times, then the hair started behaving differently and it felt differently. But that has to do with the hair history, right? It has to do with the product usage and what the hair is used to and what it can eventually do. And so the hair can, in that sense, Miriam, be trained, in the sense that it just becomes more acclimated to what's being used and responsive to what's being used. So that's one of the things that I would say about training the hair. And then you said the same is true for twist. Oh, absolutely. I know the hair history when it comes to what products the hair has had and how your hair responds to twist. That will definitely vary. Um, but it's funny because even though I've been twisting my hair and using the same products, or I've actually been experimenting with no products, and that's been working pretty well. And when I say no products, of course, I'm using shampoo and a rinse out conditioner. But sometimes I will just twist up my hair and not put any product in. And usually it's like a time saver for me. I am in a hurry and I don't want to deal with, the layering of the products that I can use to try to uh, have my twist out like this. So sometimes I won't put product in it at all. And I will just twist it and put it up, and I'll keep it that way like for a week or until it starts getting a little frizzy. Miriam says, training the hair to behave the way you want it either takes more attention, either way takes more attention than most people are willing to give. Oh my gosh, yes. It takes me a long time to twist my hair. And one thing that I did not mention, but I don't think this has to do with texturism, but one of the things that makes a difference in terms of the appearance is the technique that you use and the way you twist your hair. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Now, the other thing that I want to say about, trying to deal with texturism a little bit more is try to define exactly what it is that you are talking about. So some people would jump down my throat if I didn't qualify and say, when I talk about kinky hair, and the reason why I love to talk about kinky hair is because this is actually how it kinks. People receive that a little bit differently than if I'm just talking about kinky hair and I haven't explained exactly why I'm calling it kinky hair. And this is also a warning for those who don't have kinky hair. When you call someone's hair kinky and you don't define it, then people are going to become a little defensive because it does have a negative or can have a negative connotation to it. So just make sure you understand that. And then, as I said before, just try to not have an attitude when you give feedback. And then for those who are given feedback, just acknowledge that, oh, I'm still learning and I'll take that into consideration. And so asking for understanding of what the person is talking about is important as well. Now, this list about how to deal with texturism and how to deal with your curls and embrace them, what I'm talking about is not all inclusive. I would love for you to share and give more perspective, and also to just give people some more slack and ask for details so that there is more harmony. My goal was really to give you food for thought when it comes to how sensitive we can be. And I think that acknowledging differences in curl and the potential challenges that may come with styling, it doesn't mean that it makes it inferior just because it's different. And we need to start understanding and know what to cater to in order to overcome challenges, especially when it comes to different formulations. How are formulators going to make products better for us? I mean, there are products right now that are marketed to specifically 4C hair. Well, there wouldn't be a market to do that if people who had or feel they have 4C hair wasn't saying, hey, these products aren't working for me, right? And so Naturally High says, I wonder whether some of the training results are from changing the hydrophobicity. That is a good question. And that's easily testable too. We can test the hydrophobicity of hair and see if when they start, like whatever regimen that they're going into the stylist for, if they start that and then over time, if the hydrophobicity changes. Yeah, I think that that's a great point. And for those of you who don't know what hydrophobicity is, that is a property of where it repels water more. So, and hair like that has sebum on it, that layer of sebum also forms a type of hydrophobic layer on the hair. So, all right. Now, thank you guys for joining me. I didn't know it was going to be so long. I was like, oh, this is going to be a short lunchtime chat, but I really appreciate the engagement. And I am looking forward to hearing other things that you would want to talk about. And so, in closing, I just want to say if you want to have a face-to-face conversation with one of my team members, you can schedule a complimentary 15-minute consultation, but you can also grab a copy of How to Find the Right Stylist if you want to. And so, also, if you watch the replay, be sure to post your comments and questions. And hopefully, now you have the ammunition to have discussions with others. And so, as always, remember that our Black hair matters, and take care and love your hair. Bye bye.